Welcome back to The Big Show. It's Alex Belfield talking to the big stars. And my next guest is a personal favourite of mine, Martin Fry. How are you?
Hello, Alex. Very well indeed. How are you doing?
I can't remember how many times I must have started my show with When Smokey Sings, which is one of my favourite songs ever. Thank you.
When Smokey Sings, I Hear Violins.
Tell us, how did that song happen? Because it's just such a great song, isn't it?
Yeah, actually, it's all about growing up and listening to Tambla Motown and Atlantic and Soul and Snacks as a kid in clubs. And I was recently playing in Detroit, and I got it was a great privilege to meet up with Smokey Robinson and just hang out with him.
And did he know of your track, presumably?
He did, yeah, because way back when we brought the tune out, in the late 80s, I did a TV show and he was on it, so I gave him a copy of the record, yeah. And in LA, I hooked up with him then, when he was the managing director of Tambla Motown. What
did you make of Detroit?
Detroit is a fantastic city. There's some incredible music come out of Detroit. You know, everything from Alice Cooper, Iggy Pop, through to the Motown sound, and Eminem. But it's a kind of tough city to live in now. The car business is kind of collapsing around their ears. It's a tough city.
I was just there a few months ago doing a Motown thing myself, and it's really clean and tidy. I mean, everybody would think it's a complete dump, which it is on the periphery, but Detroit itself is beautiful, isn't it?
Yeah, it's where they shot the film RoboCop. It's got a little monorail, hasn't it, around the centre of Detroit, yeah.
And about 16 casinos, which seem to be keeping it alive.
Yeah, and Royal Oak, and so yeah, let's build the Detroit tourist industry.
I think we'll do that. As well as reminding our punters that they can go and see you back on a big, new, huge, great, big, whopping show, bringing back the 80s.
Yes, in Henley, 23rd of August. I'm going to read the list now. Midge Ure, Howard Jones, Nick Kershaw, T'Pau, the Christians, the Blockheads, Chas and Dave, Paul Young, Go West, and the Mighty ABC. And Sister Sledge. Yeah, Sister Sledge.
How many hours is this show going to last? Because
that's what I'm thinking. It's a bit like, Woodstock.
And for you, is there any better feeling than getting back on stage and just rekindling all those memories from people who are probably in their 30s and 40s now? Because they're your big audience, aren't they now?
Yeah, it's a great privilege to get on stage and play, The Look of Love and Poison Arrow and When Smokey Sings. And our audience, has grown up with us. But, there is a kind of a young audience as well that comes to check out the sound of the 1980s, ABC included. Is
it just down to the writing and the production of the pieces? Because a lot of stuff comes and goes, doesn't it?
Yeah, that's true. I mean, some of our music, our repertoire came out like in the 1980s. But you kind of go in and out of fashion, I figure, Although, when I hear the Elton John or the Stones sometimes, or Rod Stewart from the 70s, those sound fresh again sometimes. So I guess it's true of Duran Duran and ABC and Spandau Ballet and bands like that from the 80s.
How do you look back on that period in music at this point? Was it great for music? Was it okay for music? Or did it just kind of fall by the wayside of the 60s, which is as popular today as it was then, really?
Oh, no, the 80s was a very creative time in British pop music, yeah, very much so. It's kind of a homemade sound after punk rock, and it's a sound that went all around the world, all the way back to America and through Europe. So it was a very creative time for British pop. Right through the 80s, there was a lot of music today that kind of is very influenced from that period.
It's interesting. I know this has nothing to do with what we're talking about, but I just had Julian Clary in the studio earlier, and he was, of course, an 80s comic that did for comedy what you did for music. You kind of reinvented yourself. 70s was so, dare I say, bland and boring. The 80s, the Boy Georges came around, and many of the acts who were on this gig put fun back into pop. Yeah,
it was a flamboyant time, an experimental time. I'm looking forward to here in Vienna, from Ultravox when Midge Ure gets up there.
Can I talk about the 80s days? Because I'm a deeply unattractive man and I don't get any luck with the ladies. You were a big star. What was it like being you? If I could just be that for 2 minutes.
It's a good place to come and meet the ladies then, I guess. Yeah. In the 1980s it was pretty hedonistic. It was kind of very... it kind of looks like pretty naive and kind of unsophisticated by today's standards, where you've got like 69 TV channels to look at and and a laptop, and I don't know, it's just a totally different age, really, music. But it was an incredible time. Accountants do kind of run the music game today. The game was very different back in the 80s. And realistically, I mean, if our records got to number 3 in the charts, I kind of wouldn't really celebrate. I'd wonder why they hadn't got to number 2 or number 1, And years later, I look back on a career and see 15 sort of top 20 hits, and I think, that isn't an achievement, really. It's very tough to find that sort of longevity today. It doesn't mean the music of the today's stars like the Killers and MGMT, and I don't know. There's loads of great music around today, but it is kind of harder to kind of sustain a career.
Martin, what was your favourite year? What was the year when everything just went so well and you thought, I've made it?
Well, at the start of our career, 1982 was a very significant year for ABC because it was like 1 minute we were kind of queuing up in a Dole office in Sheffield, and the next we were on top of the pops. So that was kind of like being in a fast-moving car, accelerating. That was a pretty exciting year for me. It's a great privilege to stand on a stage in 2009, and I'd just done a show at the Royal Albert Hall, and I played the show, and I realised pretty much everybody in the room knew the words. So there's no hiding place up on stage when I'm performing "The Look of Love" or "All of My Heart" or something like that. It's got to be done right. So I guess I've served my apprenticeship. So I had a great time back in the 1980s, but I'm also having a great time today.
It will be a test of people's talent, this show at Henley, because we want you to sound like you did then. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. You have to hit something with energy. Yeah, because, there are maybe people that got married to "The Look of Love," divorced to "When Smokey Sings," and you got to do. I feel I've got to do justice to that material as the guy in ABC, and I'm sure every artist on that stage feels the same way. So in a way, it kind of ups the ante performing in 2009. And there's also the great British weather, so I want to make sure that everybody's feeling good, even if the sun isn't shining.
Mm. I mean, you've done some amazing things in your career, just reading your CV. I look at Bond and David Arnold, your partnership with him for Thunderball.
Yeah.
There are moments like that you never forget.
David Arnold does all the James Bond themes. It was great to kind of perform with him. When I first met him, I thought he'd be kind of from the classical world, but he isn't. He's very skilled in that area, but he once told me that he went for an audition for The Clash and just didn't get the gig. As a keyboard player, I think. Yeah.
It's a real skill, though, to do that kind of stuff. As for you writing now, what are you writing now? Is it similar to what you do in the 80s, or have you moved on?
I made an album called Traffic last year. It's great to be able to go, particularly when I'm playing in the United States, to play to a new audience and play some new songs. But recently I've been doing quite a lot of orchestral shows in Canada and here in the UK, so I'm thinking about maybe doing something orchestral next time around. But, whilst the public wants me to get up and perform "Look of Love" and "Poison Arrow," I'm there.
There's still a lot of reverence for you, isn't there, in the States and in Europe? They loved what we did in the 80s. Yeah.
I mean, I can't really... Britain was exporting pop music throughout the 1980s. The whole... through videos, through MTV, through the whole style of the music and the sound of the music. So... anywhere you go, though, remember people like Sade or Madness or, the Human League or ABC, Depeche Mode, Duran Duran. They kind of, in a way, it's a kind of, on YouTube, everything's based on film clips. So it's kind of YouTube fame I've got. Yeah, I'm very fortunate in that respect. I
mean, there's some that's fallen by the wayside. We look at people like Boy George, who's had more comebacks than anybody else. Do you kind of feel sorry for him in a way that he kind of went down the wrong route and it all became too much for him? You seem more level-headed even then, let alone now. Well, Boy George, he's done a lot of things that he probably regrets. And, he's just finished serving a sentence in prison. So I'm sure, something, though, when he gets out and he writes the book, I'll be there first in the queue to read it. And I hope that, I figure it's like that. Boy George I was privileged to do a tour with him once, and you stand next to him and he sings, and the hairs on the back of your neck come up. He's got an incredible voice. But he's a very, by his own admission, he's a very mercurial guy. He's up and he's down. Yeah. And I'm sure he's done a lot of things he loved doing and a lot of things he regrets. But you know what? That's life, and I'm sure he's working all that out. And you know what? I'd like to see him come fire back and climb on stage again. And I'm sure one day he will. He needs to stop talking and start singing, because everybody loves him for his singing. When he starts talking, he gets into bother. Well, George is an incredible musician, and he's an incredible voice, a recognisable voice. But maybe he doesn't realise that. Maybe he's just realising that now. Yeah. But Taboo, his musical was great. And talking of hedonism, I remember going to Taboo first time round, in Leicester Square. You really did. Lee Bowery's club. the memories and the people you've met and the things you've done, and the fact that you're still doing them is a real testament to your talent, because there's so many who come and go, and there aren't many acts like ABC and yourself who last. And again, there aren't many days go by when I don't play you.
That's kind. But, you know, in my case, I'm only as good as the music. You know, the music's the thing that's taken, that's brought me all these air miles, all these years. And I've been very fortunate over the years. But you know, I think there's some incredible new music around too. But, yeah, it is nice to be remembered.
Good luck with the big show that's happening in Henley. Give us the date.
The date is Sunday, the 23rd of August.
It's going to be a huge 80s extravaganza. It's called 80s Rewind Festival. And everybody you've ever wanted to see from the 80s will be there. I'm really looking forward to it. Thanks, Martin.
Thanks, Alex.